Thank you, Rob. It's so nice to see you again. And I love that new look with the hair. It's beautiful. So, hi, everyone. Um, our focus at RebelMouse is what does AI mean to websites? And we have clients that are B2B, that are like Penske, the truck rental company, through to clients that are straight media companies like Upworthy or Brit & Co. or Raw Story. So um, first, I want to, before I get into things, I just want to say that a little preface. I think that AI is as scary as it is exciting. And if you're only excited about it, you're missing it. I think it's really scary. So I'm going to give you a very optimistic, practical reality, how we can use these things moving forward. And it might sound like I'm only excited about AI. It is scary what it means to us, our lives, what does it mean to creatives in general. I will say, I'm not going to touch on too much. I only have 30 minutes and I want to cover a bunch of things. I will say that I do, having worked on this very deeply in the last 12 months, I do believe that it opens a lot of work for creatives. It gives us superpowers as creatives. So it was very scary at first, this could replace creatives, but I think at least where we are now, I don't know about the future, and I definitely believe the ethics around the sourcing, et cetera, is a very sticky, complicated topic that would take 3 hours with incredible conversations and debate. And I'm not going to get into that now. So what I'm going to do is screen share. And let's see if this works. I'm going to start with Rob, tell me if my screen sharing is where you can come on mute. If it's fine, I'll just continue. If it's disaster,
no, it looks great. So you're all
okay,
good.
perfect. So listen, I wanted to start with what's the easiest thing with the lowest budget for those of you listening personally that would just want to play with it. And I recommend you go to Dream Studio, beta.dreamstudio.ai. You can just Google Dream Studio. And I paid them, I forget, $100 for 10,000 tokens a year ago. So, get a little budget in there so you can do things because it's pretty amazing. I think the right way to look at it, and I have examples here, is that if you are an editor working on a blog post, I took a random Power to Fly blog post that was about job search, and there's a pretty sock clip art that you had to pay for. In this case, those are wonderful examples where you can use AI to come up with a concept. This one purposely is a very clip arty type of concept. And you can see the right prompt is actually long. You get weirdly specific with things. You can go deep into training models on images you've created and stuff I'm not going to touch on now, but practical. If you start to treat it like a writer who's trying to actually explain themselves to an artist that's sitting next to you, you can see it's like I said, I want them to be feminine and a minority using a microscope. And so that's this example. I got 4. To be clear, you now own these images. Whether that's ethical or not, and whether it's stole from an artist's style, I'm not going to touch on today, but legally, you own that image and you can credit it however you'd like. I believe the right way to credit it on a blog would be that, this is Power to Fly's blog post, I'd say Power to Fly plus Dream Studio or plus Stable Diffusion. So there's a little hint how it was created in the credits. But you paid about 0.001 cents for this image, if you use it or not, to generate it. You don't pay per download, and that's how the licensing works, which opens up all types of opportunities. We've integrated into the CMS directly, and we're doing a next version. We're excited where we'll analyze all the text and come up with 50 images for you to scan. What you'll see is it would be terrible to trust AI to generate an image in an automatic way with no human supervision. The right way to think about AI is it really empowers people who are creative to be more efficient, more effective, do more. So this is another fancy corporate blog post that accompanies an article, and I did it like that. The first one came out all white, straight male feeling. So that's why I changed it and started getting stuff that felt more right. And if you are, working with a blog setting, if you're doing corporate news stuff, you can see how like Turkish President Erdogan emerging victorious with a sword and blood as a gladiator in a Colosseum. This is concept art, high res, detailed face. You can get really crazy with some of these prompts. This is another version, but you can see how you can come up with concept art for a news story that, normally if you're working at a high-end New York Times like media company, you get the privilege of having an artist work on your story, and that's only some. So the idea that you can have someone do these types of things, that's, I think, my favorite of Erdogan but I don't know, I'm sorry for the dark topic. Obviously, I'm not a fan. Another thing is that if you do interviews with people, you could take their photo. I don't have the original photo of her, but it was a photo of her. She's wearing glasses, and you can have AI try to do an artwork rendition of it. That can be really cool for the person. My profile photos are an AI version of myself, which I honestly wish I looked exactly like her. But it's fun. You obviously could go too far. This is also her. So again, automating AI and just having it do it would be a disaster, but coming up with creative prompts and styles for this, especially like this is a beautiful representation of artificial intelligence as a feminine humanoid. It's crazy what it comes up with. So these are really fun. It's easy to play here. You can see how I have all these little prompts. You see the massive variety and how you can find a style, reuse it, make it something that now you have, it all feels like your website has an illustrator. So that's one use. That's simple. It's very cheap. You could integrate this into workflows, but that's out of the box. Showing what we do at RebelMouse. This is an entry editor. Built in is that you can write prompts here and see it. But what I want to show with this example is that we analyze, this is a client, pride.com, who we are very proud to power. They're awesome. Advocate is also on RebelMouse. And if you see what happens here is this is an article and AI has analyzed to suggest tags. This is where you can just say, oh, AI will do everything, or you realize there's workflow, enterprise workflow you put on top. So we take the OpenAI suggested tags and look across Google Search Console data for any matches. These are things that they have won a top 100 presence on these search phrases as pride.com. So Adam Mac Age, Adam Mac Music are all phrases that they've won if you Google, and it doesn't mean they won #1, but they are ranking. So you totally should add these because these leverage our existing wins. So these are like no-brainers. These are also really helpful to know. These are tags you've already used before. So, you can keep adding to that. And then this is tags that you've never used before, and you might want to consider for this one. So anti-LGBTQ protests might be a really cool one. Things is not, and back to AI requires supervision and it makes an editor smart. So they can just come select all, hit add, etc. So that's a really nice type of a use case. On the RebelMouse CMS, this is not only integrated, but iterating. We do strategy work outside. If you can't, you're not the CMS person in the company, but you're interested in what your website or what AI can do, just to say we do creative agency work to build the roadmaps and help you understand what AI can do and how you can do it. I'll show another example that's editorial. This is an article about Texas attorney Ken Paxton, who, like most trans people and LGBT people, I hate Ken Paxton. So you can integrate into the entry editor things that are smart prompts. So this one, we can say, why does this matter to an LGBT activist? It passes the content of the article into OpenAI to analyze, and then it can return back text that then you can insert into your article, rewrite, summarize, or use as like a highlight. This really helps in like brevity plus making it matter to your audience and have that filtered. We will also wouldn't recommend that by script you just automatically have this. It requires review, but it can be quite helpful. I think there was another one where you can do like, hey, I want to do a little summary of this post that will do really well and help get you a featured snippet in SEO. This has a complicated prompt that was found through one of the search engine blogs where they said this is a great way. So we integrated that prompt into this body. And now you can copy this and you could put it at the top of your article in bold, let's say, and that gives you kind of the summary of what this article is about in a way that will perform really well for Google's SEO snippets. So there's a lot of things you can also do around headline optimization and passing it through. That one didn't work. I'm on a beta instance here. But those are like editorial content things. You can summarize, you can explain why something matters, you can do images, you can do analysis for taxonomy, and then search and related content becomes really tremendous. Comic Sans is one of George Takei's properties, and this is a story about Cheryl Lee Ralph, and she won't have much of a career due to her AIDS advocacy. And AI is finding related content with these two stories from their massive content source. And what's really cool is it's not just following like some tag, it finds the underlying context, and you'll see that it's this surprisingly awesome thing of like finding celebrities that are going through like an awkward thing. If you go to another example here, you have like an Ohio police chief, and so what you find here is like a 14-year-old girl finds an iPhone taped to black tip, a cop sparks outrage. So doing this type of units, we're also releasing right now where we take your personalized, so recommended for you, we take the reading behavior of the last 3 articles you read, so that you might be reading something about a trans person in Texas, and we realize, oh, okay, so there's a bunch of stories that even though now I'm reading something different entirely, I can recommend for you. So AI is really good at matching and recommendations. That also, one thing that when you use ChatGPT, you immediately start like, wait, what's the source and can I trust it? As a website, you can take AI. We do this now, it's integrated in CMS and out of the box that we can launch this. We take all of your content. In OpenAI, it's called embeddings. And we say, that's your knowledge source. So this is Narcity, is a big local news site in Canada. I did this to save time. I had this, typed out before, but what are the best things to do in Montreal in fall? And this is not just coming up with some random thing. This is actually based on the content from Narcity from all the years of doing this. So you can do what are the best sushi restaurants in Vancouver. And, it's an opportunity, whatever your business model is. We see, like, for example, Skift is a very smart company. This is not a RebelMouse client, but they do a beautiful job with this, where they're pushing subscribers. And so here you see you get 3 free questions. And if you want to ask more and get Skift's very valuable, they're like B2B travel news. If you want to get it in this interface, you're going to have to subscribe. So there's a lot of stuff that AI gives you that allows you to integrate features that make it worth it for someone to subscribe, sign up, because I can either 1, access all that content in a chat interface, or 2, but this is like, here it is giving me my answers, but it's personalized, it's chat interfaces, and then you can do incredible matching for enterprise level examples. So we have JJ Keller is this big compliance company, and they have clients that, they have very specific things. They are a trucking company that has 16 axle trucks or whatever. I don't know if are that many axles in trucks, but they have like, do I transport blood across state lines? And now to be able to use AI to match that back to all the regulations and the news about those regulations that they should watch is really tremendous. So the other thing that I wanted to show, which I think is really interesting, this is our interface. And behind the scenes, you can you can do AI, you can do OpenAI Playground. And this lets you, if you want to experiment with things and do things for free, you don't need enterprise CMSs or anything, you want to play around with what can happen in text. Actually, in this example is what I wanted to cover, is that you can plug AI into enterprise workflows that then become automated or part of a process. So I have an example of, like, for a news company that we're working with, that we're able to take the wires from AP and then automatically, here's an example article. It's about, the G7, and here's the article content. And AI, we can use AI to extract all the locations that are mentioned and that are part of this article. So that's a comma delimited list of it. What in the background we're doing, and one way to show this is, I'm going to actually, it's a little bit easier to see this visually if I redo this, so it's kind of happens live. So my prompt is, what does the article content provided mean to someone who lives in Papua New Guinea? That's because I took one of the locations, Papua New Guinea, and I'm saying, here's the article. So there's a lot of different ways in API to pass the article body and automate workflow, etc. But if you're curious and you want to play around, these playgrounds are really useful. They also, I want to talk about models in a moment. But then I paste in the article. So if I now hit submit on this, then it'll analyze, and you see in green here how it takes this article and says, what does this mean for that person and why does that matter? So that means, like, for this company, that they can take a stream of content and start to map it for hyperlocal with a summarization of why it matters. So it's kind of like mind-blowing when you realize what can happen with workflow. One of the projects we have with Power to Fly is using AI to match jobs and candidates and do natural language search. And now I'll get a little bit into a few more complex things, is to understand models. In all of these playgrounds, Dream Studio has it too, and you should actually, like, I think you had to go into, in Dream Studio, you have to go into advanced. But in advanced, you can change the models that they offer. And so, for example, this model, if I do exactly the same prompt, like here, let's do this one. It's a really not as good model. So let's come back up to the top. But models are attached to pricing. So the more complex the data is behind teaching AI, and the more deep that is, usually the slower the result comes and the higher the cost is for it. So Stable Diffusion has a pricing page, and same with OpenAI. These models can be drastically different, and you have to understand them when you're getting deep in. For example, like, this is an incredibly cheap model, text data, and this is what lets you put anything in embedded. So it's really cheap, and then you can go deep. When you get into these pieces on GPT-3, you can get into incredibly expensive models that are, like, literally 100 times more expensive than the cheap model. So, or more. So you have to be aware of models and understand that. But generally, for AI in companies, you can choose the expensive models generally because you're not going to use it that much, that it's that expensive. So if I have these two prompts, and then I can do, in a different model, I'll do the SDXL beta, that same image, you can see, like, the level of quality, how it changes, and that's related to price. So it's interesting because in this example, these aren't actually that bad. These are kind of nicer, but you have to play with those models and be aware of them. We in our integration support them, but beyond that, you have to train things when you start to use it in enterprise situations. So this is, for example, the control panel we've done to set up agents. And this one is one that actually my son did an internship with us. This is set up for George Takei as a client. And what you do is over here, you can train the agent. You train your AI bot and you give it conversations. For any developers, you search Python LangChain, and that's the core underneath what we're using. And as a strategy firm, we give tips, guidance, and you can use our agents through APIs. But here you can see I'm telling it, and my son actually spent on an internship, he got this bot to, if you see you're speaking to a reader of an LGBT news site, blah, 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 blah. And then in conversation tone, we say like, look, we want to emulate that it's George you're talking to. You're the agent of George. So here is like to write like George Takei. It's important to have writing samples. So please use these writing samples. And we took a bunch of his tweets and used that. And then if I refresh here, I can do what are the biggest issues facing LGBT people today? And instead of just the default answers that you would get at OpenAI, you'll actually see that it'll get really personalized to the content that's from the Comic Sans, the source, and that it does it in the voice of George Takei. So there's a lot of incredibly cool things you can do with this, not just as a chatbot, but you can set up agents with tasks. I think I have one here that for SEO reasons, a lot of smart content people think about pillar posts. This is like the core search phrase. You're going to win through a very smart post. You dedicate real resources to make it. And you can use AI. This is like Britain Code does a lot of cooking stuff to use your own knowledge source and start giving editors a smart way to do these. Where you're pulling in the right content, the right sources for it, you're setting up the pillar post. This is just a sample, but for them with Crockpot recipes, they can have like one article that has 75 recipes all linked in. So you can do these really incredible pillar posts where it's an AI assisted moment that takes all of your content and no content from the web, just your content, to kind of rewrite the like, here's what we have on the website for this. That gets to this text.
No, I was just going to say this.
Yes.
No, this is all so fascinating. And as you said at the beginning, it's scary and exciting at the same time. Yeah. Which, before we lose you, I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions that we had from the community, all of which are kind of around the same topics, which someone is asking, what do you see as kind of the role in the human content creators going forward? And someone was also saying, what advice would you give to content creators who are skeptical about the role of AI in their work? So what would you say to those content creators now?
Well, listen, like I believe it's scary. So please, if I'm giving you an optimistic view, don't hate me for it. I see all the other sides of it, but I think
could you just stop sharing your screen too, just because we're seeing double.
Stop share. Thank you.
There we go. Awesome.
I didn't realize that. Thank you. So listen, I think that what's really exciting about it, to focus on that, is that no AI works at a high quality level without a really creative person massaging it, playing with it, tuning it, editing it. And that, then you think about one creative person. If in a simple way, it's like, obviously having a typewriter didn't make writers obsolete, it gave them more power. So if this is used in the right way, there's a lot that this gives creative people, that gives this in, and you can think, oh my God, I'm a digital artist, like a designer at RebelMouse. Do I have to worry that designs will be done by UX? And that's absolutely, so far, the wrong way to look at it, because you take all your experience in design and you start using that. And our designer, who I thought might be threatened by it, loves it, uses it to create 4x faster with different layouts. And it relies on all of her expertise and knowledge and creativity. So there's a lot that empowers us to do more. And I think the way to stay on top of it, just kind of selfishly for yourself, is one of the highest paid new jobs is an AI prompt engineer. They're making like a lot of money. So, there's a lot of opportunities in being the one that figures it out. Will there be a lot of sadness around where that loss is? OpenAI CEO has been really clear that yes, there is. So, it's like we could spend a good hour being really sad about this for sure. And I would be genuine about it. It is sad and scary. But you can be on the side of it that gets you moving forward and makes it work for your business, makes it work for you in an ethical way that is exciting.
No, it makes me think, there's artists like David Hockney who started his career painting and then started designing stuff on an iPad. And the iPad has not replaced the digital version of the art, has not replaced the painter. And I think there's still going to be an audience for both of these things, because sometimes I think the AI just won't be able to get what a human being will able to do, just I think as that will be vice versa as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just to think about it, how Pixar films, you think all that ability for technology, it doesn't mean they don't hire artists. They need them more than ever, but they can do things that, blow your mind compared to what could be done before. So it's about being able to do things that, frankly, you just couldn't do before. And doing that as a creative person can be really empowering.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And you mentioned prompts a bunch, and literally our next talk is a workshop on prompts. So
yay, fun.
Everyone
awesome.
Can dive into that, because that's definitely one of the key words we're hearing. But Andrea, thank you so much for sharing all of this expertise with us, and definitely encourage everyone to follow up on some of these amazing tools.
Great. Thank you for having me, Rob. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.